Today we are going to talk about fish fry. No, not that kind. We're not talking about fish fry like food that you would eat. We're talking about baby fish. Baby fish are called fry. That is a term for fish, baby fish. They're called fry. So anyway, I've got fry all over the place. I've got them down here. I've got them over here. I've got them in here. I've got them in here. I've got some there. I've got some there, there, in here. I've got babies in my Tanganyika tank in my living room. Heck, even this one in my office, which is an absolute disaster nightmare. I'm not going to show you this tank up close, but more to come on this in the future because I've got some stuff coming in the mail from Aquarium Co-op, so we're going to fix this tank. But anyway, that one even has baby fish. Hey fish friends, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Zenzo from Tazawa Tanks. Now this topic of this video came from one of you. A viewer reached out to me by the name of Lance and asked that I make a video talking about how to raise baby fish fry. Now I'm not going to get into breeding fish. I've made videos about this before. There are a lot of other videos out there. There's a lot of information on how to breed fish, and that's really going to vary based on the type of fish that you're breeding. What I want to talk about is how to raise up those baby fish once they've hatched and ensure that you get the best results. Now I'm going to break this down just into some very simple steps that will be really easy to remember and easy to follow. The first one, which is really two parts, is quality. The second one is quantity, and the last one is cover. Now when I talk about quality, I'm talking about two different things. I'm talking about water quality, and I'm talking about the quality of the food that you're providing to your fish. So obviously, for obvious reasons, we want to make sure that we have good water quality. We want to make sure that the water parameters that those baby fish are living in is ideal. We want to make sure that the nitrates are low. We want to make sure that we do not have nitrite or ammonia present at all, because that could be very harmful to the fish. It could kill the fish, it could stunt their growth, etc. So having really good water quality is important. Additionally, if you are raising some fish that might be sensitive to certain types of water parameters, you want to make sure that you have optimal water parameters for that type of fish. So if you're trying to do a really good job with live bears or African cichlids, you might need a little bit harder water with a little bit higher pH, whereas discus you might want to have softer water, increased water temperature, etc. So it really is going to vary as far as what kind of fish you're raising up, but the water quality is going to be very important. The second part to quality is food, and again, this is basic, right? So you want to make sure that the food that you are feeding your baby fish is good quality. For me, I like using small foods, obviously, that can be easily manipulated. I've made a video before talking about the extreme krill flake and the extreme spirulina flake, and I can take that and grind it up into a very fine powder, and that will do well for me with some of my very small fish fry. I've also done live foods, frozen foods, etc. So having a really quality food is going to be important, and making sure that that food is the right size for them to eat. So if you are going to do live food, make sure that the live food that you're providing your baby fish is small enough for them to eat. And obviously as they grow, you could give them a little bit bigger foods. Same thing with frozen. If you're going to do like frozen brine shrimp, make sure that you get the baby brine shrimp because it's super, super tiny. If you're going to do live foods, you could do the live brine shrimp, you could do Daphne, etc. And then also with the dry food, you want to make sure that it is a quality dry food. You don't want to just use some, run-of-the-mill, yucky, generic fish food. You want to use a really good quality fish food, and there are some out there that I can put in the description down below and link those, and that would give you some ideas. One from Aquarium Co-op, their fry food, and then I also mentioned those two flake foods that I use that I grind up. I also use a nano food from Extreme. It's a nano granule pretty much, and basically once the fish are maybe about 3 to 4 millimeters long, they can easily eat that stuff up. So it's a really good food for your fish as they grow. It holds up really well in the water, floats, slowly sinks, like really, really, really slow. So it is a good option for you. The next tip is quantity. When we're talking about quantity, I'm talking about the quantity of food, and maybe I should say quantity and frequency. So a baby fish is growing. It is, it's just like a human or a mammal or any other, living being. even plants, etc. When they are growing up as younglings, they need to consume more food than an adult that is not growing anymore and is just basically, you know, set in their size. So their metabolism is higher, they're burning more calories essentially, so you need to make sure that you feed them more frequently and you feed them enough. So what I like to do is when I'm feeding my baby fish, I always make sure that I go a little bit extra, knowing that I'm really good at, you know, keeping up on the water changes. I'm not worried about the tanks fouling up. And babies are always wanting to eat. The baby fish are always wanting to eat. And what I do is I look at their bellies and I want to make sure that I always see nice, full, round bellies on my baby fish. For a larger adult fish, not so much concerned. In some cases, you don't want that for health reasons, but for the babies, you want to basically pack on those pounds, not pounds, but, you know, milligrams or whatever, but you want to pack on that weight on those fish, and you want to make sure that they have nice, full, round bellies and that they're eating all the time. Obviously, you can also look at their feces, making sure that they're passing as well. So frequency and quantity is going to be important in raising baby fish. My last tip is pretty basic again, and that is cover. Now, this is probably an area that most people maybe don't do as well. They don't really think this part out. And what I mean by cover, I mean hiding places. So if you want your fish fry to be successful in a tank that has both, you know, newborn or newly hatched fish, or they could be born if it's a live bear, but newly hatched fish, or you know, juveniles and adults, you're going to need cover, meaning that you're going to need places for those newly hatched fish to hide. That could be like really densely packed together plants, moss, really densely you know, stacked wood and rocks and things like that, or rocks with a lot of holes and crevices where larger fish can't get into. That would really be important if you're trying to ensure that the babies survive in that tank with the different size fish in there. So, you know, as an example, in some of my tanks with like African cichlids, if I'm not like trying to breed them on purpose, if I'm not trying to pull out a female and strip the female and keep the babies in a separate tank, which I'll cover in a second, and I just want to let them do their thing, I just make sure there's lots of rocks and hiding places where the babies can scurry off and hide in a little hole until they get large enough to fend for themselves. And that's kind of the situation in some of these other tanks where I have, you know, a mixture of fish. I'll just make sure that there's lots of moss and other places for those fish to hide so that they have a chance. Now, if you are trying to raise up fish fry babies and grow them out to sell or give away or put in other tanks, the best chance of survival is to have them alone and not with other fish, meaning that take them out of a community tank, take them away from their parents even, once they're at a certain size. Just make sure that, you know, they are in a tank that is similar in water quality or, you know, water parameters. You don't want to take them from a hard water tank and put them in a soft water tank. You want basically the same kind of tank setup, same temperature, etc. Basic stuff, but having those fish in a different tank by themselves, still following those other tips that I gave you as far as cover. They're still going to need cover to hide from one another because some of the baby fish can be quite aggressive. My 5-star generals that I grew out, once they get to be about a ½ an inch or so, they start to attack each other. So having cover for them to hide from one another is important as well. Lots of food. They can outcompete one another for food, so making sure you have lots of food, water quality, etc. If you want them to survive, put them in a different tank and let them grow out separately so that your survival rate will be much better. If you don't do that, depending on the type of fish, the type of, you know, the amount of cover, etc., your survival rate might be very low. You might have a female, let's say it's an African cichlid, and maybe she's holding maybe 30 eggs, and the eggs hatch in her mouth, and she's holding those fry in her mouth, and then she spits them. You might have 2 or 3 or 4 that survive out of those 30 because the rest get eaten right away. So if you want all of them to survive, or most of them to survive, then pull them out. So that is a lot of information that I just kind of blurted out very quickly, and just wanted to share a few tips. I have been rather successful in breeding fish. I've bred fish for profit in the past. I've talked about this in various videos. I've talked about it on podcasts. I used to sell fish to the local fish stores, and I've been breeding fish for many, many years. But really, now I just kind of do it for fun, and maybe there's a certain fish or two that I want to make sure that I can pass along if it's hard to find in my area, like my shell dwellers. Maybe it's a fish that, like my Solosi, that I just think are super awesome, and maybe there are some people that I know that want some, so I can get them. My 5-star generals, I've already shipped out some babies to some people locally, and I've got some more because they want more. So, but for the most part, I'm not really breeding on purpose. If fish happen to spawn and make babies, that's great, but I still try to give them an opportunity to survive and thrive in the tanks that they're in, just so I can continually have more and more fish in my aquariums. Now, as I shared at the beginning of this video, this was a topic that was suggested and asked of by one of you guys. If you have a topic that you would like for me to cover, I'm always looking for ideas on videos to make. You know, when you've made hundreds of videos, and I literally have made hundreds of videos, I don't know how many videos I've made. We're probably getting close to 400, but when you've made so many videos, you kind of sometimes run out of topics to talk about, and I'm always interested to know what you guys want to hear. So for you people out there, you guys and gals, if you have a particular topic that you feel I would be able to shed some light on and talk about, I would be very happy to consider it. So comment down below what you might want me to cover in the future. I'm not guaranteeing I'll do it, but if it's a good topic, if it's something that I haven't covered in my 300 to 400 videos before, then maybe I will make that video. That's all I had for now. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel. Don't forget to like this video, share it, all that good stuff. Thanks for watching. We'll catch you on the next one.